Have you ever noticed that even when you're sitting quietly and doing nothing, your mind is still active? Sometimes you are remembering something, sometimes you are planning something, sometimes you're worrying about something, sometimes you're imagining your future. This continuous activity of the mind is called thinking. In fact, there is no moment in our life when we are not thinking. From the time we wake up in the morning till we fall asleep at night, and even while dreaming, our mind keeps working. So, today we are going to study one of the most important chapters in psychology, chapter 8 from your first PUC syllabus, Thinking. This chapter will help you understand how your mind works, how you solve problems, how you reason, how you take decisions, and how you create ideas that are formed, creative ideas. Let us begin with the introduction and definition. In psychology, thinking is defined as the manipulation of mental representations of information. In simple words, thinking means working with ideas, images, symbols, and concepts inside our mind. We do not always think by doing actions. Most of the time, thinking happens silently inside the mind. According to Gilmer in 1970, thinking is a problem-solving process in which we use ideas or symbols in place of overt activity. For example, before you answer a question in the examination, you first think. Before you speak to someone, you first think. Before you decide what to do after PUC, you first think. So, thinking is the base of all our actions. Thinking consists of rearranging and manipulating information that we receive from the environment and information that is already stored in our long-term memory. We use symbols, images, and language while thinking. The quality of our thinking depends on how well we understand the world around us. Nature of thinking. Thinking has some important characteristics. First, thinking is the base of all cognitive activities. It is a higher mental process and it is unique to human beings. Animals also have intelligence, but human thinking is much more advanced, logical, creative, and abstract. Second, thinking involves manipulation and analysis of information. For example, when you see a painting, you do not only see colors and lines, you try to understand the meaning of the painting. You connect it with your previous knowledge, you form new ideas. This is thinking. Third, thinking is organized and goal directed. Almost all our daily activities have some goal. Cooking food has a goal, studying for an exam has a goal, planning a journey has a goal. If the task is familiar, we recall the steps we used earlier. If the task is new, we try to form new strategies. Fourth, thinking is an internal mental process. We cannot see thinking directly, we can only guess it from behavior. For example, when you see a chess player sitting silently for 5 minutes before making a move, you cannot see his thinking, but you know his mind is working. Building blocks of thought. Our thinking is based mainly on two things. First, mental images. Second, concepts. Let us understand them one by one. Mental image. A mental image is a mental representation of a sensory experience. In simple words, it is a picture in the mind. For example, if I say, imagine the Taj Mahal, immediately a picture comes to your mind. That is a mental image. If a teacher asks a student to imagine a cat sitting on a tree, the student tries to form a picture in the mind. That is mental imagery. We use mental images while remembering places, reading maps, giving directions, imagining situations, planning things. Mental images help us think about things, places, and events even when they are not present in front of us. Concepts. A concept is a mental representation of a category. It refers to a class of objects, ideas, or events that share common properties. For example, when you see an apple, you say it is a fruit. When you see a dog, you say it is an animal. When you see a chair, you say it is furniture. So instead of remembering each object separately, we group them into categories. These categories are called concepts. When we see a new object, we observe its features, compare them with existing categories, and then decide whether and where it belongs. For example, if you see a small animal with 4 legs, barking and wagging its tail, you immediately say it is a dog, even if it is a new breed. Need to form concepts. Concept formation helps us to organize our knowledge. Just like books are arranged in a library, our knowledge is arranged in concepts in the mind. Because of concepts, we save time, we save mental energy, our thinking becomes fast and efficient. If everything was unorganized in the mind, thinking would become very slow and confusing. Processes of thinking. Now we come to the main part of this chapter. The processes of thinking include problem solving, reasoning, decision making, and creative thinking. Let us begin with problem solving. Problem solving is thinking that is goal directed. A problem exists when there is a difference between the present situation and the desired situation. For example, repairing a broken bicycle, planning a tour, solving a mathematics problem, preparing food quickly for a guest. All these are examples of problem solving. In problem solving, there is an initial state, which is the problem, an end state, which is the goal, and a series of steps to reach the goal. Steps in problem solving. The steps usually involved are: first, identifying the problem; second, understanding and representing the problem; third, planning the solution; fourth, trying different solutions; fifth, selecting and applying the best solution; sixth, evaluating the result; seventh, learning from the experience for future problems. Factors affecting problem solving. First, mental set. Mental set is the tendency to use the same old methods to solve new problems. Sometimes this helps, but sometimes it blocks new and better solutions. For example, if you always solve problems using one method, you may fail to see a simpler method. Second, insight. Insight is a sudden understanding of the solution. It is also called the aha experience. Suddenly the problem becomes clear and the solution appears in the mind. Third, incubation. Sometimes when a problem is very difficult, we leave it and do something else. And after some time, suddenly the solution comes to the mind. This process is called incubation. Functional fixedness. Functional fixedness means seeing objects only in their usual function. Because of this, we fail to use them in new ways. The best example is Dunker's candle problem, where people cannot think of using the box as a candle stand because they only see it as a box. Now, let us move on to the next concept, reasoning. Reasoning is a cognitive activity that helps us to draw conclusions, make judgments, and take decisions by transforming information. In simple words, reasoning means logical thinking. There are two main types of reasoning: formal reasoning and everyday reasoning. In formal reasoning, all the information is given clearly, the problem is well defined, and usually there is only one correct answer. In everyday reasoning, many things are not clearly stated, some information is missing, and problems are more complex. This type of reasoning is used in daily life. Formal reasoning can be of three types: deductive reasoning, inductive reasoning, and analogical reasoning. Let us understand in detail one by one. Deductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning is a type of reasoning in which the conclusion must be true if the premises are true. In this, we move from a general statement to a specific conclusion. For example, all human beings die one day. I am a human being, therefore I will die one day. Another example, all oranges are fruits, all fruits grow on trees, therefore all oranges grow on trees. Here, if the premises are true, the conclusion must be true. Inductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning is a type of reasoning in which we move from specific experiences to a general conclusion. In this, the conclusion is not always absolutely certain, but it is usually correct in daily life. For example, every time you eat shrimp, you get stomach pain. So you can conclude that shrimp causes stomach pain. Another example, all the tigers seen in a particular region have yellow and black stripes. So you conclude that all tigers in that region have yellow and black stripes. Inductive reasoning helps us in everyday life, even though it does not guarantee 100% correctness. Analogical reasoning. Analogy is another form of reasoning. It is based on similarity of relationships. It follows the pattern A is to B and C is to D. For example, water is to fish as air is to human. White is to snow and black is to coal. Analogies help us understand new problems using old knowledge. Problem solving rules, algorithms and heuristics. When we solve problems, we use certain rules. Two important types of rules are algorithms and heuristics. Algorithm. An algorithm is a fixed rule or method which, if applied correctly, guarantees a correct solution. For example, mathematical formulas are algorithms. If you use the correct formula properly, you will get the correct answer. But sometimes finding the correct formula itself is difficult. A systematic random search is also an algorithm in which we try all possible solutions one by one. Heuristics. Heuristics are mental shortcuts or rules of thumb. They do not guarantee correct answers, but they save time and mental effort. For example, buying a branded product because we believe it is safer and better. One important heuristic is means end analysis. In this, we compare our present situation with our goal and try to reduce the difference step by step. Decision making. Decision making is a type of problem solving in which we have to choose one option from many alternatives. In daily life, we take many decisions. Which course to choose, which college to join, which job to take, which product to buy. Most of the time, decision making is risky because we are not sure about the future results. Factors affecting decision making. Heuristics. We use mental shortcuts based on past experience to make decisions better. For example, choosing a branded product because we believe it is better. Framing. Framing means the way information is presented in terms of gains or losses. When a situation is shown in terms of gain, people avoid risk. When the same situation is shown in terms of loss, people take risk. For example, people prefer fixed bank interest rather than risky share market profit. But when facing loss, people take risk to recover money. Escalation of commitment. This means continuing a bad decision even when losses are increasing. People do this because they have already invested time, money, or effort. For example, some companies continue loss-making projects because of prestige and commitment. Creative thinking. Creative thinking is different from other types of thinking. It means producing new, original, and useful ideas or solutions. Creativity is not just doing something different, it must be novel, original, useful, appropriate to the situation, socially acceptable. According to Berner, creative thinking produces effective surprise. Types of thinking: convergent and divergent. According to J.P. Guilford, there are two types of thinking. Convergent thinking. It is used when there is only one correct answer. The mind moves towards one solution. For example, 3, 6, 9, 12. Here only one answer is correct. Divergent thinking. Divergent thinking is open-ended thinking. Here many answers are possible. For example, what are the uses of cloth? What will happen if exams are abolished? Different students will give different answers. Abilities of divergent thinking. Fluency, ability to produce many ideas. Flexibility, ability to produce different types of ideas. Originality, ability to produce new and rare ideas. Elaboration, ability to add details to ideas. Stages in creative thinking. Creative thinking usually passes through the following stages: preparation, collecting information and understanding the problem; incubation, leaving the problem for some time; illumination, sudden insight or aha experience; evaluation, checking whether the idea is useful; revision, improving and modifying the idea. Characteristics of creative thinkers. A creative thinker usually creative thinkers are usually curious, imaginative, open to new experiences, flexible in thinking, independent in ideas, are willing to take risk, and they are persistent and hardworking. Tips to improve creativity. Be curious and ask questions. Do not fear mistakes. Try new experiences. Think in different ways. Do brainstorming. Do not reject ideas too early. Give time for thinking and imagination. Lateral thinking. Lateral thinking was given by Edward de Bono. It means thinking in a new, different, and unconventional way instead of the usual logical way. Instead of moving step by step, lateral thinking tries to look at the problem from a new angle. One famous method is the 6 thinking hats: white hat, facts and information; red hat, emotions and feelings; black hat, criticism and caution; yellow hat, positive thinking and benefits; green hat, creativity and new ideas; blue hat, control and organization of thinking. Activity. How can a teacher help a student? By doing some activities. Teachers can ask students to think of new uses of common object, solve puzzles, do group discussions, do creative writing, do brainstorming sessions. So students, thinking is the base of mental activities. Of all mental activities, thinking uses images, symbols and concepts. Problem solving, reasoning, decision making and creativity are main process of thinking. Creative thinking is essential for progress in life. So dear students, let me conclude. Today we studied one of the most powerful abilities of human mind, thinking. Thinking helps us to understand the world, solve problems, take decisions, create new ideas and improve our life. The quality of our life depends on the quality of our thinking. So always try to think clearly, logically and creatively. If you found this lesson useful, revise this chapter properly, make short notes, practice answers and always try to observe your own thinking in daily life. Remember, do not just study psychology, start using psychology in your daily life. If you have understood this lesson, please subscribe to my channel, like this video, share it with your friends and your fellow classmates and comment below your thoughts.